My dear children, today, I want to tell you a story about my life that I have never shared with anyone before. Come sit close to me and listen, carefully, because these words come from the deepest corners of my heart. I was only 15 years old when I married your grandfather. Those were different times, my children. Girls didn't go to school back then. We were only taught household chores and how to take care of a family. But I had dreams, big dreams. I wanted to study, to become a teacher, to make something of myself. But fate had different plans for me. After marriage, I came to live in a house full of strangers. Your grandfather was a kind man. I won't lie about that, but his mother was very strict. May Allah grant her peace in heaven, but she was harsh on me. From dawn to dusk, there was work, endless work. Cooking, cleaning, washing, taking care of the animals. I never had a moment to rest or even think about my own dreams. Then your father was born, and with him came my first real joy in that house. But along with happiness came new worries. Money was always tight. Your grandfather worked as a laborer, earning just enough to put food on the table. There were many nights when we went to bed hungry, just so our baby could have milk. I would lie awake, feeling my stomach ache with emptiness, but I never complained. The early years of motherhood were the hardest. I was so young, barely 20, and already responsible for a tiny life. I didn't know anything about raising children, but I learned through trial and error. When your father got sick with fever, I would stay up all night, placing wet cloths on his forehead, praying to Allah that he would be okay. The nearest doctor was miles away, and we couldn't afford to take him there for every small illness. Your grandfather worked harder and harder to provide for us. I could see the exhaustion in his eyes every evening when he came home. His hands were rough and calloused from years of manual labor. Sometimes he would come home with injuries, cuts and bruises, but he never complained. He would just wash up quietly and sit down for dinner, grateful for whatever little we had. As the years passed, we had 3 more children. Each pregnancy was difficult because I was always working, never getting proper rest or nutrition. But somehow, with Allah's grace, all my children were born healthy. The house became livelier, but also more challenging. 4 young children needed constant attention, and I was the only one taking care of them. I remember one particular winter that was especially harsh. Your grandfather couldn't find work for weeks because of the heavy snow. We had run out of flour, rice, and even oil for cooking. I had to borrow from neighbors, which was humiliating, but what choice did I have? My children were hungry. I would make thin soup from whatever vegetables I could find and tell the children it was a special treat. They believed me because they trusted their mother completely. During those difficult days, I started taking in sewing work from other households. I would sit by the window, using the daylight to stitch clothes for other families while my own children played around me. My fingers would ache from the constant needlework, and my eyes would burn from straining in the dim light. But this extra income helped us survive. Your grandfather always felt guilty that I had to work so hard. He would tell me that it was his responsibility to provide for the family, not mine. But I would remind him that we were partners in this journey, and partners support each other through thick and thin. We were building something together, a family, a future for our children. I taught myself to read by looking at old newspapers and asking the children next door to help me with difficult words. I was determined that even if I couldn't become a teacher, I wouldn't let my lack of education hold my children back. Every evening, after all the chores were done, I would sit with your father and teach him whatever little I knew. I would make up stories to help him remember letters and numbers. The village school was far away, and we couldn't afford books or uniforms. But I was determined to send your father there. I started saving every single coin I could. Sometimes I would skip meals just to put aside a few paisa for his education. Your grandfather initially thought it was unnecessary, that boys from families like ours didn't need formal education, but I convinced him otherwise. Those were days of constant struggle, but also of small victories. When your father learned to write his name, I felt like I had conquered the world. When he came home from school and told me about things he had learned, I would listen with such pride and amazement. Through his education, I was living my own unfulfilled dreams. But then came the day that changed everything forever. Your grandfather was working on a construction site when he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest. The other workers brought him home, and I could see immediately that something was seriously wrong. His face was pale and he was struggling to breathe. We rushed him to the government hospital in the city, borrowing money for the bus fare. The doctors said his heart was failing. They kept him in the hospital for 3 days, and I never left his bedside. I would hold his hand and whisper prayers, begging Allah to give him strength. On the 3rd night, he looked at me with such love and his eyes, and whispered that he was sorry he couldn't give me a better life. Those were his last words to me. At the age of 28, I became a widow with 4 children to raise alone. The world suddenly seemed like a very dark and scary place. People in the village started giving me advice that I didn't want to hear. They said I should remarry, that it would be better for my children to have a father figure. But I couldn't imagine sharing my life with anyone else. Your grandfather had been my first love, and I wanted him to be my last. The nights after his death were the loneliest I had ever experienced. I would lie awake thinking about how I was going to manage everything by myself. The children were so young. The youngest was only 3 years old. How was I going to feed them, clothe them, educate them? The responsibility felt overwhelming, and there were moments when I felt like giving up. But every morning when I looked at my children's faces, I found new strength. They needed me, and I was all they had left in this world. I made a promise to your grandfather's memory and to my children that I would do whatever it took to give them a good life. That promise became my driving force, my reason for living. I started looking for work more seriously. The sewing wasn't bringing in enough money to support a family of 5. I began working as a house cleaner for wealthy families in town. It was hard work, scrubbing floors, washing dishes, cleaning bathrooms, but it paid better than sewing. I would wake up before dawn, prepare breakfast for my children, walk them to school, and then walk several miles to reach the houses where I worked. The wealthy women I worked for were not always kind. Some treated me with respect, but others looked down on me because I was an uneducated widow. They would make me work extra hours without additional pay and sometimes wouldn't even offer me a glass of water during long, hot summer days. But I swallowed my pride because my children's future was more important than my dignity. Working in those big houses also opened my eyes to a different world. I saw how the other half lived, with their beautiful furniture, abundant food, and children who went to expensive schools. Instead of feeling bitter, it motivated me to work harder. I told myself that one day, my children would also have access to such opportunities. Not because they were born into wealth, but because they had earned it through hard work and education. Your father, being the eldest, started helping me when he turned 12. After school, he would work at a tea stall, washing glasses and serving customers. I felt terrible that he had to work at such a young age, but we needed every rupee we could earn. He never complained, never asked for toys or treats that other children had. He understood our situation and accepted it with maturity beyond his years. The other children were too young to work, but they helped in their own ways. They would take care of each other when I was away, sharing responsibilities without being asked. Your aunt, who was only 8, learned to cook simple meals and would have food ready when I came home exhausted from work. These small gestures filled my heart with both pride and sadness. Despite all our hardships, I never let my children see me cry. I would wait until they were asleep before allowing myself to break down. I would sit outside under the stars, thinking about your grandfather and wondering if I was making the right decisions. Sometimes I would cry until there were no tears left. And then I would wipe my face, say a prayer, and prepare myself for another day of struggle. The years passed slowly, each one bringing new challenges but also small improvements. Your father excelled in school despite having to work part-time. His teachers praised his intelligence and dedication, which filled me with immense pride. I started dreaming again. This time not for myself, but for my children. I could see a different future for them, one where they wouldn't have to struggle like their parents did. When your father turned 16, he received a scholarship to study in the city. It was a moment of pure joy mixed with anxiety. The scholarship would cover his tuition, but he would need money for lodging, food, and books. I knew this was his chance to break free from the cycle of poverty that had trapped our family for generations. I was determined to make it happen, no matter what it cost me. I took on additional work, cleaning houses during the day, and sewing clothes late into the night. My health started deteriorating from the constant stress and lack of sleep. But I didn't care. Every coin I earned brought your father closer to his education. I sold my few pieces of jewelry, the ones your grandfather had given me, to buy him books and clothes for college. It broke my heart to part with those precious memories, but his future was more important than my sentiments. Those were the loneliest years of my life. With your father away in the city, I felt like I had lost a part of myself. He was not just my son, but also my partner in managing the household and taking care of the younger children. His absence made everything more difficult, but I kept reminding myself that this sacrifice was necessary for all of our futures. Your father would come home during holidays and tell me about his studies, the friends he had made, and the opportunities he was discovering. I could see him changing, becoming more confident and articulate. Sometimes I felt like he was moving into a world that I could never be part of. But instead of feeling sad, I felt proud. This was exactly what I had wanted for him. During his second year of college, I received the news that my mother was seriously ill. She was living in our ancestral village, a place I hadn't visited since my marriage. I desperately wanted to see her, to take care of her in her final days. But I couldn't afford the travel expenses. The little money I had was being sent to your father for his education. I had to choose between seeing my dying mother and securing my son's future. I chose your father's future, and that decision haunts me to this day. My mother passed away without me being there to hold her hand or ask for her forgiveness. I received the news of her death through a letter that arrived 3 days too late. I couldn't even attend her funeral because I didn't have money for the journey. That night, I cried like I had never cried before, feeling like I had failed as a daughter. But life doesn't stop for grief. I had 3 other children who needed me, and your father's education had to continue. I buried my sorrow deep inside my heart and kept working. Sometimes guilt would overwhelm me, and I would wonder if I had made the right choice. But then I would remind myself that my mother would have wanted me to prioritize my children's future over everything else. Your father graduated with honors and immediately found a good job in the city. When he sent me his first salary, I held those notes in my hands and wept. All those years of struggle, all those sleepless nights, all those sacrifices had finally paid off. But more importantly, he hadn't forgotten about his family. Every month he would send money home, and slowly our financial situation started improving. With your father's support, I was able to send your uncle and aunts to school as well. Education became our family's priority, the ladder we used to climb out of poverty. Your uncle became a teacher, fulfilling the dream I had once harbored for myself. Your aunts also completed their education and married into good families. Watching them succeed felt like I was living multiple lives, experiencing all the achievements I had once dreamed of. When your father got married and brought your mother home, I was initially worried about how we would adjust to having another woman in the house. But your mother turned out to be a blessing. She was educated, kind, and respectful. More importantly, she understood the value of the struggles we had been through. She never complained about our modest lifestyle, and always treated me with the respect due to a mother. As years passed and you children were born, I felt like my life had come full circle. Holding each of you in my arms, I saw hope and possibility. I made sure to tell you stories about your grandfather, about the values he stood for, and about the importance of education and hard work. I wanted you to know where you came from and to appreciate the journey your family had taken. Your father built this house with his earnings, and finally we had a place we could truly call our own. No more worrying about rent. No more moving from one cramped room to another. But more than the physical comfort, it was the emotional security that mattered. We had survived the worst of times and emerged stronger. Now, as I sit here with you children gathered around me, I realize how quickly time has passed. My hair has turned white. My hands are wrinkled and weak. And my heart is not as strong as it used to be. The doctors say I don't have much time left, but I'm not afraid. I have lived a full life, seen my children succeed, and held my grandchildren in my arms. Looking back, I don't regret the choices I made. Yes, there were times when I felt overwhelmed, times when I questioned whether I was strong enough to handle everything. Life threw at me. But every challenge taught me something about myself, about resilience, about the power of love and determination. I want you children to remember that life will test you in ways you cannot imagine. There will be moments when you feel like giving up, when the obstacles seem insurmountable. But remember that you come from a family of survivors, of people who refuse to be defeated by circumstances. Your blood carries the strength of generations, who fought against odds and emerged victorious. Most importantly, never forget the value of family. When everything else fails, when friends disappoint you, when the world seems unfair, your family will always be there for you. Take care of each other, support each other's dreams, and never let pride or petty arguments divide you. The love we share is the greatest treasure we possess. As I tell you this story, I feel a sense of peace that I haven't experienced in years. I have carried these memories alone for so long, and sharing them with you feels like passing on a legacy. You are the continuation of a story that began with your great-grandparents, continued through your grandfather and me, and will live on through you and your children. Promise me that you will remember not just the struggles, but also the love that held us together through everything. Promise me that you will work hard to achieve your dreams, but never at the cost of your relationships with each other. I have seen wealthy people who are miserable because they have no one to share their success with. I have seen poor people who are rich in love and happiness. Money is important, education is crucial, but love and family bonds are what make life truly meaningful. When I was young, I thought happiness meant having enough food, a safe place to sleep, and security for the future. Now I realize that happiness is much simpler. It's seeing your children succeed. It's holding your grandchildren. It's knowing that the people you love are safe and healthy. It's the satisfaction of knowing that your struggles served a purpose. There were nights when I would lie awake, wondering if I was a good mother, if I was making the right decisions. I second-guessed myself constantly. Should I have remarried to give my children a father figure? Should I have borrowed money to visit my dying mother? Should I have pushed your father less hard about his studies? These questions haunted me for years. But now, seeing how everything turned out, I believe that everything happened for a reason. Every hardship prepared us for the next challenge. Every sacrifice led to something better. Even the mistakes I made taught us valuable lessons about resilience and forgiveness. Your father never blamed me for the difficult childhood he had. Instead, he thanked me for teaching him the value of hard work and determination. Your uncle and aunts always speak with gratitude about the opportunities I fought to give them. This is the greatest reward any mother can ask for, knowing that her children appreciate the sacrifices she made. I want you to understand that the struggles I went through were not unique to me. Every generation faces its own challenges. Your parents had different obstacles to overcome than I did. You will face challenges that are different from both of ours. But the principles remain the same. Work hard, stay united as a family, never give up on your dreams, and always help those who are less fortunate. The woman who cleans your house today might be going through the same struggles I went through decades ago. The man who delivers your groceries might be working multiple jobs to send his children to school. Always treat people with kindness and respect, because you never know what battles they are fighting. I have lived through poverty and prosperity, through loss and gain, through despair and hope. If I could change anything about my life, it would only be small things. I would have spent more time with my mother. I would have taken better care of my health. I would have worried less about things that were beyond my control. But overall, I am grateful for the life I have lived. As my time in this world comes to an end, I am not sad or afraid. I am proud of what we have accomplished as a family. I am content knowing that the values I tried to instill in my children have been passed down to you. I am peaceful because I know that the love we shared will continue to bind this family together long after I am gone. When you face difficult times in your lives, and you will, remember this old woman who refused to give up, who found strength in love, who turned every obstacle into an opportunity. Remember that you carry that same strength within you. Remember that your grandmother's prayers and blessings will always be with you, guiding you through whatever challenges life may bring. This is my story, my legacy to you. It's not a story of perfection, but of persistence. It's not a tale of wealth, but of richness of spirit. It's not about achieving everything you dream of, but about finding meaning and purpose in whatever life gives you. Take these lessons with you, my dear children, and make your own stories worth telling.